Welcome back. Thank you very, very much for staying tuned into Pan-African Television with me, Kwame Owusu. So this is the News Review segment. Now, I told you that there are a number of issues that we're going to be touching on. But even before that, let me remind you that today is the 18th of February, 2021. So here are the topics that we've chosen for our conversation this morning. Extend compulsory retirement age. Minister designate makes case for sustained pension scheme. Minister designate make case for sustained pension scheme. That is captured by the Daily Graphic newspaper. Also, JMA worried, blaming rising COVID deaths on lack of beds, ICUs, others. This has been captured by the Insight newspaper this morning. Ghana loses $19.8 million through fraudulent activities. Daily Post reported this story. Health alert, Ebola virus scare. Ghana Health Service places health facilities on high alert. And that has been captured by the Daily Graphic newspaper. Stories on page 60. Now, it's very, very instructive to acknowledge the fact that the issue of Ebola is an African issue. It's an African story. And so we would find a way of bringing into the fray issues of Ebola, which has, become topical, for instance, in Guinea and in Liberia, etc. And of course, Ghana is no exception because Ghana is also on red alert, respect of the Ebola scare. So these are the topics. Honorable Timothy Atembwadi Awontrim is here seated. We are expecting Mr. Pratt to join us pretty shortly, and then we can also hear from him on the issues that we've tabled. Let me remind the viewers that the WhatsApp number is active. It's 0260846539. 0260846539. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. So you can also connect with us there. On Twitter, you can share with me what your thoughts are on Twitter at Kwame Owusu Danso, Instagram, Kwame Owusu Danso, Facebook at Kwame Owusu Danso. So these are the topics. And we're going to be starting, first of all, with the what has been captured on the front page of the Inside newspaper. GMA worried, blames rising COVID deaths on lack of beds, ICUs, and others. Honorable Tim, good morning again.
Good morning.
I trust you're doing well.
I'm doing well, certainly.
Why are you smiling like that?
No, we give thanks to God for His grace and for the fact that we are here healthy and trying to also interact with our viewers and listeners.
They are not wearing a nose mask.
Because of the distance between you and us.
There's no distance.
There's
no distance. Please.
I walk from the house to this place.
Please put it down. Good.
I think that I'm looking good.
Now you're looking very good.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. The issues of COVID-19. I've been looking at the issues, and I've argued that when the COVID-19 started in this country, and the fact that this country was among the lowest hit around the world, and people continue to attribute that to policies put in place by this government that resulted in the low hitting of us. Now it has mutated into a different level. Why can't the same policies arrest the spread? Why is it now becoming out of hand that we cannot employ the same policies that we used the first round? So what it meant was that it was just by natural circumstances and by the grace of God that the COVID couldn't hit us at the time, just as it hit other advanced countries like the US, France, and Italy. And the issue is that when you look at the policies that were put in place previously, they were simply the policies were washing of hands, distancing, wearing of nose masks, and so on. And these were policies that have been employed by advanced countries, yet the COVID hit them. So for people of this government to come, I've been quoting this statement by the national organizer of the MPP, who said that, you see, I didn't know the president would perform. No, I knew the president would perform, but I didn't know that he would blow my mind. You see, and they keep attributing every success of it to the present policies. And these are policies that were put in place by advanced countries, yet the COVID hit them and their bodies were on the street. And by and large, and from time to time, the president comes to give us a state of the pandemic and give us statistics and caution us as to what to do. And even at that stage, we were always told that there were some lockdowns in some areas, and so including just the whole issue. But for me, when the president, anytime he can say he was going by the sciences, and the science tells us that your policies you are putting in place are not working as it should. And when you look at the colossal amount that the government took for that period, over 17 billion Ghana cedis that was mobilized for the fight against coronavirus. What do we have today? Our hospitals are dilapidated. The equipment to fight these things are obsolete. We've not retooled them. We've not brought in any sanitizers and even nose masks and all the protocols that we need this 17 billion to have been able to pump into it. We cannot fund the money, and the protocols are being abused even by the powers that be. So for me, it's an issue that is not just what the medical association is complaining, but the fact that the government itself have not taken the fight seriously, looking at the amount of money the government garnered. Remember that we took $1 billion from the IMF, Parliament approved money, the Bank of Ghana gave for this fight. What we are asking for is a forensic audit into the 17 billion Ghana cedis or more the government took, and there's nothing to write home about. A private institution like the one headed by Senyo Hussein, the oil companies, put up 100 million Ghana cedis center to be able to deal with these issues. Government went and commissioned and even claimed that they did it. But what is happening today, even at the airports and other areas, we are paying 150. The president last announced that it was going to be reduced to $50. My younger brother came from the US and he still paid $150. And the other time I was on another sister station of yours, and one guy who also arrived from Dubai texted in and said that he paid $150 for the checkup there. And we had argued on and on that, look, Noguchi was noted for its research into such viruses and diseases. So we would want that such monies go to Noguchi, so that what they are suffering from the acquisition of scientific and modern equipment to be able to test these things, if that money goes there and then it builds Noguchi and retool it, it's for the people of this country. But a private institution is taking so much money for private purposes. Look at the people who ought to know, who appeared before the Parliamentary Vetting Committee, who denied knowledge and told us that they don't even know, they don't know the company, and they are not aware about what went into it. If the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for Health, even Security cannot tell us what went into that health, is it health care services, Frontiers Healthcare Services, into the procurement processes and making it to be the sole care services that was in charge of charging people $150, and we still have these things, then at least much to be desired.
Yeah.
It's not just about it. In as much I will often call on citizens to ensure that their health status are not what government tells you, must also ensure that you do the right thing. Government has a responsibility because government is handling the resources and the taxes of this country on behalf of the people of this country. So it is worrisome that a whole amount of 17 billion Ghana cedis, we cannot account for it. Up to now, we are calling for investigation as to what the money was used for. If there are lack of beds, did we buy the beds? If there are lack of ventilators at the ICUs and all those things, you think we couldn't have pumped 1 billion to acquisition of these things? The disease didn't just sprang on us. Initially, yes, but up to now, the beds are still there. The president promised that he was going to build 88. They've now even extended it to 101. We do not even know the figure now. The Lagina Hospital has been pulled out. It has now turned to a football field. And so on. And the cutting of swords that became a cliche during the elections. The cutting of swords that became a beauty function in this country. Today, as we sit, no hospital has been re-equipped. No hospital beds have been bought. No. And this is the medical, Ghana Medical Association. It's not coming from any of us, and some will tell us it's propaganda. The report is out there. If today, as we sit, No efforts have been made to put up any new structures. Even the old ones are running aground. Interestingly, when they were vetting the Minister for Health, a question was put to him. When you came to power, have you put up a brand new hospital? He wanted to jump into, what do you call it?
The Eurojet project?
No, not even Eurojet. This cheap compounds. And they said, no, a brand new disruption. He said, no. What happened to the present 88 hospital? He said it was only a vision. And yet, this is the Minister of Health, who immediately, when he was nominated and sworn in as a minister, he found it expedient to go to the rich hospital to change the plaque and put his name there, saying that he commissioned an already commissioned hospital by a former president. This is the first time it has happened. And remember that when he went and did it at the time, they had impugned massive corruption into that structure. And I was wondering why a minister of health would want to associate his name to a corrupted building, a building that has been corrupted, and a building that is photoshopped and so on. So I sent even a text for our people to ask him why he did that, and what was the intention of doing that. But hey, the question was not asked. So this is how we've been playing with our medical institutions, with our medical policies over the years, political propaganda, especially by the government, and nothing to write home about. Right. But okay. I think that's about time we hold the government responsible, hold the government to ensure that the COVID funds, over the 17 billion, there will be a forensic audit and we know the actual use of that money. Right. What the medical association is saying, that there are even lack of beds, simple beds. The hospitals are congested. There's nowhere. We are not even setting up temporary structures to house those people who are having the COVID. Yesterday, I heard a news from one of your sister stations saying that even suspected COVID patients at Kolebu were being mixed with the ordinary patients and so on, and nurses and so on. And these are dangerous signs that we must look at, because the current virus that is taking place is dangerous. I learned it's dangerous than the first one. So government must sit up and ensure that the right thing is done. For me, lack of beds, ICUs, and others should not be a major problem when there were funds specially allocated for to arrest the spread of the COVID.
Right. Thank you very, very, very much. Mr. Pratt, please.
Well, this morning, there are 3 exceedingly disturbing news items about coronavirus. The first one is a report that as many as 128 people died of coronavirus or COVID-19 in the first 2 weeks of February alone. Wow. 128 people died. First 2 weeks of February alone. And that must be exceedingly worrying for anybody who is observing the trends and so on. The second one is a statement attributed to the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Mr. Joseph Krampa. And Mr. Joseph Krampa claims or says that PPEs are unavailable for nurses and midwives. Indeed, he's quoted in the Daily Post of today as saying, in so many facilities, the unavailability of PPEs is so alarming. When the virus came at first within March and July, we recorded about 840 infected nurses and midwives, and out of that, 3 died. Now, nurses and midwives are exposed to almost everybody by extension and so on. So if you have a situation in which you have such a very high number of nurses and midwives infected, we should be alarmed. And we are talking here about 840 nurses and midwives. You're not adding doctors, you're not adding pharmacists and so on. So if this is the situation in our health facilities, we should be worried, because our health facilities themselves have become disaster zones and they have become risk areas. So if your health facilities have become risk areas, infected zones and so on, where do you go when you get the disease? When you have symptoms and you are not sure and so on, where do you go? Do you go to the hospitals, which themselves are so heavily infected and so on? The third story is the story which is carried by the Ghana News Agency. And I must make the point that the Ghana News Agency is one of the most reputable news networks in our country. And the Ghana News Agency had an interview with the president of the Ghana Medical Association. And the report, which is published in the Insight of Today, says, the Ghana Medical Association has expressed concern over the increasing number of coronavirus deaths in the country, especially within the past week. Obviously alarmed about the situation, the Ghana Medical Association has attributed the spike in COVID deaths to the limited access to health facilities. The association has also lamented the inadequate number of medical personnel handling critical to severe COVID-19 cases and said that it was contributing to the rising death. Dr. Justice Youngson, General Secretary of the association, in an interview with the Ghana News Agency, said people kept losing their lives because there were no adequate COVID-19 intensive care units, ICUs, with enough functional beds for patients. This is the Ghana Medical Association. We do not have enough specialized facilities to take care of people with severe coronavirus infections. And the increase in death simply means more critical to severe cases are being recorded, but they do not receive the needed attention, he said, and so on. Now, every Ghanaian should be worried about this situation. Every Ghanaian should be worried about this situation. Pan-African Television had the privilege of interviewing one of the persons involved in the management of COVID-19 cases at the Rich Hospital in this very studio. Now, what did he tell us? One of the things he told us that the whole Rich Hospital, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, specially designated to handle COVID-19 cases, has only 32 beds. 32 beds. That's all they have. He went on to tell us that they do not have dedicated outpatients departments for COVID-19 cases. He also went on to discuss in detail the inadequate supply of oxygen. And all of us know that the supply of oxygen is vital for the management of COVID-19 cases. Now, at a time when some countries are actually in space, you know, at the time that some countries, including Nigeria, are in space, if Ghana is not in a position to produce oxygen for its hospitals, we should be very deeply worried. What does it take to produce oxygen? I mean, I'm not a scientist. The basic science teaches us that the ordinary air we breathe, I mean, when you walk out into any space and you breathe oil and so air and so on, about 70% of that air we breathe is made up of nitrogen. And around 20% is made up of oxygen. You produce oxygen by going through a process which separates nitrogen from oxygen in order to get 100% concentration of oxygen for patients. Now, this one too we can do. This simple process of separating nitrogen from oxygen is so difficult that Ghana cannot do. And you don't have to import the nitrogen, you don't have to import the oxygen. The air we breathe, anywhere you go, the air you get has 70% nitrogen and about 20% oxygen. This one too, we can't do. I have a friend who lost his brother-in-law because there wasn't enough oxygen to cater for his condition. He lost his brother-in-law only last week as a result of the inadequate supply of oxygen. Why? Even in the so-called advanced countries of this world and so on, given the situation of the pandemic and so on, they are beginning to improvise. They are using tents. You understand? They are using tents to extend their facilities and so on. If we need dedicated outpatients departments for COVID cases and so on, at least in places like the Ridge Hospital, what prevents us from building tents? Building tents too has become impossible for Ghana. Tents, ordinary tents, as outpatients department. We can't do that. Even in this emergency, if you want to increase the bed facilities available for the management of COVID-19 cases, why don't you produce tents? Why do we have to build 38 hospitals before we're able to deal with these matters? Knowing fully well that we don't have the capacity to build 38 hospitals at the emergency stage. The police hospital in Accra, the renovation of the police hospital in Accra has taken 17 years. We haven't completed. Renovation, not building. The Badi Polyclinic, which was pulled down, go and see the situation there and so on. So building hospital is not an option given our track record and so on. Common sense dictates that we should take emergency measures to deal with this emergency. And the only sensible emergency measure we can take right now is to use tents for the management of COVID-19 cases and so on. In the midst of all this, we have also gone ahead and reopened schools. We've also gone ahead and reopened schools. I mean, incredible. How are our leaders thinking? And then if you listen to the reasons for reopening of schools, you just wonder. You know, our leaders look into our face and say that, oh, we have reopened schools because the incidence of COVID-19 infections in the schools is low. I mean, can you believe that? That they are reopening the schools because the incidence is low. So we are waiting for the incidence to be high before we close down the schools. When closing down the schools is meant to prevent the incidence of infections rising. But our leaders said that it hasn't risen, so it's okay, open the schools and so on. I can't believe it. We say that we are led by science. The scientists in the field, Ghana Medical Association, is telling us to close down the schools. Our leaders always tell us that we should pray. You know, this COVID-19 thing, oh, only the hand of God can deal with it. Let us pray and so on. Yesterday, I saw a report indicating that the Anglican Church is telling us to close down the schools.
Yes.
If it comes to prayers, is it our ministers and president and so who are going to tell us how to pray? The bishops are telling you to close down the schools. I have seen photographs of bishops wearing triple face masks. The bishops themselves are afraid of COVID-19. They are not praying. They are wearing triple face masks. And those who are telling us to pray, the lay people who are telling us to pray, are not making these PPEs available to nurses, to midwives, and so on. That is what the story is telling us. You know, I'm really disturbed about what is happening. In the beginning, when all of this started and so on, even at the time that we went for the lockdown in Accra, the partial lockdown in Accra, if you heard of COVID-19 and the number of deaths and so on, it was so far away, so far removed. You were only dealing with figures and statistics. Today, every Ghanaian knows somebody who has died from COVID-19 or who has been infected by COVID-19. It is either your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your neighbor, your friend, and something. Everybody knows. That's how bad the situation has become. You understand? And then, surprisingly, when the case starts getting worse, well, the case now is getting very bad. Now, the episodes of fellow Ghanaians has rather reduced. As the disease goes up, these episodes of my fellow Ghanaians has reduced. You understand? What is happening? We all know that the figures that the officials are throwing out are not reliable figures. We know. And we know they are not reliable figures because we don't have mass compulsory testing for coronavirus. You understand? We do know that contact tracing was stopped at some point. So how do you know the figures? So all these figures that they are throwing at us, where are those figures coming from? Yesterday morning, I followed the Western media, trying to get an understanding of the global situation and so on. And they are reporting that studies have shown that most of the figures thrown out by African governments are not reliable. They are not reliable. Indeed, now, some of the universities which are studying the extent of the spread of the virus and so on are using what they call, there's a technical term for it which I've just forgotten, the excess death. They are doing excess death analysis, okay? Now, what is excess death analysis? They are claiming that normally, 20 people die in your country every month. If all of a sudden 50 people are dying in your country every month, then there must be a reason why it has jumped from 20 to 50. So it is the excess death analysis which is now being used in order to validate some of the figures which are being thrown out by the African governments. Look at a place like Tanzania. Tanzania actually claims, the government actually claims that it is COVID-19 free. Only for a prime minister of one of the federations in Tanzania to die yesterday from COVID. What are we doing to ourselves? Look, we have reopened schools. So 18-month-old children, babies, are allowed to go to school. Okay? We are saying 18-month-old babies should go to school. 2-year-old children should go to school. 3-year-old children should go to school and so on. But you see, we are very wise. Our leaders are so wise, it's unbelievable. Our wise leaders have come to the conclusion that adult parliamentarians who are adult, responsible citizens by any standards and so on, they cannot take care of protocols and look after themselves well, so we are shutting parliament for 3 weeks. But 18-month-old children can take care of themselves, so they should go to school. That's how wise our leaders are. Our leaders are very wise people. And that is how wise they are. 50-year-olds, retired people, should not go to parliament because they cannot manage the protocols and so on. But 18-month-old children are okay, let them go to school. We are talking about a situation in this country in which in some places there are 100 to 100 pupils or students to one teacher. So if you assemble 100 children and you give them one teacher, how can that one teacher effectively supervise them and ensure that they abide by the protocols? One teacher to 100 students. I mean, are we crazy? Are we crazy in this country? What is happening? And then they come and tell us all kinds of cock and bull stories. You have heard stories of some of the heads and administrators of the schools telling us that in many schools, they don't even have water.
Yeah.
And water is an essential ingredient in the prevention methods. So if the schools don't have water, why do you reopen them? I mean, I was shocked to the marrow when I learned that the students who have gone to campus in the universities and so on are not attending regular lectures. They are actually studying using
Online.
They're studying online. Now, if they are studying online, why do you congregate them on the campuses? Why do you congregate them on the campuses? Does it make sense to congregate them on the campuses when they cannot attend regular lectures? I mean, something is seriously and fundamentally wrong with our management of COVID-19. And I'm not surprised that the numbers are rising. I mean, first 2 weeks of February alone, 128 people dead. And some of the things, you know, I always remember the South Korean case. I hope you do remember the South Korean case, where one infected woman went to an all-night service. Within 1 week, that one infected woman had caused thousands of infections in South Korea. So even one case is important, you understand? But we are sitting here saying that, oh, you have only a few hundred cases in the school, so don't worry. Don't worry. We started from 2. Now look at where we are. I am completely disgusted, you know, by the handling of this coronavirus, you know, cases and so on. Look, in the beginning, only Greater Accra was infected. Then we moved on to 2 regions and so on. Now all the 16 regions of Ghana have cases of coronavirus, and they are spreading. And we are sitting here playing tanko. Some countries have developed COVID-19 vaccines and other remedies and so on. Some countries have already immunized millions of people and so on. We are sitting here, we don't even have 1, not 2, not 3. 1 corona vaccine has not come into this country. 1 vial of corona vaccine has not come into this country. And we are sitting here, we are happy. Ghana has some of the most brilliant scientists, and we know them. I mean, I can go on and mention them. Look at somebody like Dr. Konote Ahulu. The whole world, if you are looking for people who deal with sickle cell disease and so on, he's amongst the first 3 worldwide. You have a researcher, medical researcher like Dr. Francis Nkrumah, who used to head the Noguchi Institute. He's Ghanaian, he's here. And I can go on and mention many names. Frimpong Boateng is here, and so on. So it is not for the lack of expertise. Our researchers, our scientists are able, they are willing to work, they are willing to advise. They are not being given the needed resources for them to be able for them to become useful in this fight against COVID-19. We are spending the resources on things that don't make sense. You can imagine my shock last week when I was flipping through the newspapers and I read a story which said that we have appointed a new board chair for the building of the cathedral.
Yeah.
I mean, we are still focusing attention on building the cathedral in the midst of this pandemic. Hallelujah. God bless our leaders.
Right, so if you just joined us, you're watching the News Review segment here on Pan-African Television. The WhatsApp number, like I told you before, is active. It's 0260846539. We're also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. So you can connect with us on there. Share with us what you're thinking this morning, and I will be glad to read them out on the show. Next topic: extend compulsory retirement age. Minister designate makes case for sustained pension scheme. Daily Graphic. Honorable.
Yeah. Extend retirement age. And I think the same minister talked about the fact that under the current government, 3 million people were employed, both in the public and then the private sector. And this extension of retirement age, he talks about the fact that because people retire early, they are not able to contribute substantially for their pensions and so on. They do not make good monies after pensions and so on. I think that is not an issue. What are the pension funds being invested in? What has accrued as a result of that, that beneficiaries of pension funds, those who have contributed to their pension, their retirement age, are not getting. How much is being paid now and so on. And that is the issue that we should look at. Fine, if the statistics shows, data shows that we should extend the retirement age from the constitutional mandated compulsory retirement age to an extension, to what end is it going to make? Looking at our unemployment rate. Now, most of these politicians, when we are in office, we say some of these things, but when it comes to real implementation, we run away from them. And for me, we should look at what is even, before even we talk about the extension of the retirement age, what has been the investment pattern of our pension funds? What has been accrued to people who have worked over 30 years? We often see people working over 30 years, 40 years. They come out with a lump sum of just even less than 5,000 or 20,000. Are we being fair to them? Is it the issue of extending the age, or even what is there now? What have we done to make the life of our retirees comfortable? There are some diseases that gradually come with age. It is not for nothing that the Constitution prescribed that you should retire at a certain age, because as you age, there are certain professions, as you age, you become matured and more experienced in them. There are some too, as you reach 80, your production level would continue to reduce, because your energy level, your thinking and other issues that come up might not allow you to put up your best. So looking at the compulsory age and extending it is not just the issue, but what goes into it now. How are people benefiting from what they've worked for? We've heard stories of civil and public servants, people who went to take their pensions, and the lump sum they gave them, they were so shocked. That is why people even compare that even the ex gratia of government appointees, for that matter, members of parliament, the executive, including the president, is far more. Because if someone comes to parliament for the next 4 years, he takes more than someone who would have worked in the public service, is a teacher, a nurse, or any of the sectors for over 40 years and so on. Let us, for me, rushing to amend the age for a retirement age to be increased is not the issue, but what goes with it. And then interestingly too, those who are in the helm of affairs, they have the capacity and the chance to get their retirement. When they retire, they are even given contracts. It is extended for another 2 and so years, where they even benefit more. And looking at the numbers that we are currently having, the unemployment rate, the graduate unemployment covering almost every sector, and how many people are on our pension data, how many people contribute to Senate. If you look at the current numbers at Senate, I think it's just about between 600,000 to 700,000 people. Here's again the same minister who is telling us they've employed over 3 million people. And if these 3 million people being absorbed by Senate, have we seen an increment in the Senate numbers, or he's just saying it for political expediency? These are all issues that labor and then the employees association and so on, including the employees, must sit together and then look at the challenges, not just by the pronouncement of a minister. And interestingly, to see what the resources of the state that include pensions, and so what are we doing to ensure that even at the retirement there are some diseases that goes with old age, hypertension, diabetes, and all those manner of sicknesses that have not even been captured by the National Health Insurance Scheme. So these people go on pension, they are not able to even buy what do you call it, drugs that would arrest or would let them live longer in a better life. We've seen pensioners who are virtually begging. Even at the end of the month, their monies do not come. Some are virtually living in areas that you will not know that when you see them, you regret for working so much for this country for over 30, 40 years. You end up like a pauper. We've seen a lot of them. Middle after retirement, their life begin to deteriorate. They are not even able to pay their bills and so on. These are issues that we can capture them under the current package for pensioners to make their lives better than just changing, if it is merely changing the numbers. My brother, someone can even work up to 70 years. But brother, his life might not even change. It's not just merely changing the number, adding 2, 3, 4 years and so on. It's the whole package for a pensioner who would have worked so much for this country, who would have not gotten his hands even swell, spoiled by stealing from government. Remember, most of these people, at the end of the day, they go home well prepared, the big men in our public service and so on. It is those at the lower level that suffer so much. They go home without accommodation. They go home still taking care of younger babies, younger family siblings and so on. So we should look at the whole package of the pension scheme and look at what we give it to the people, we give it to our retirees. Are they take-home salaries? Are they take-home pensions? Are the lump sums enough to be able to give them a better retirement? They've suffered for this country. Looking at our security services, look at our teachers, nurses, cutting across all. They've suffered. There have been some teachers who have taught us from P1 up to today. They go home looking like they've never taught. They've never worked in the public sector. It is not just the matter of changing the pension age. If it's just adding another year, 2 years to it, without looking at the whole pension scheme, then we've done nothing. Numbers are not just the issue. It is what you send home that keeps you, that is much more important.
Let me remind viewers that we will be going to the Supreme Court today. So I'm sure we will truncate the morning show at some point. So you might want to bear with us. Mr. Pratt, please, on this subject matter.
Well, I've never seen the wisdom in asking all persons who are 60 years old to go and stay at home simply because they are 60 years old. You understand? Because in this country, I've seen people who are in their 80s who are capable of work and whose brains are working and who are active in many ways. You understand? So I've always had a problem with the retiring age, the retirement age, especially when it was pegged at 60. Because I think that we are losing some huge experience and some manpower which should be available for national development and so on. So on that score, I'm inclined to agree with the minister designate that perhaps it would make a lot of sense to extend the retiring age beyond 60. So I know many people, I mean, I've seen people who are 80 years, they drive their own cars, they go to their private offices, they are productive, they have a wealth of experience, they bring quality to the job of national development and so on. So to that extent, I will agree with the minister designate. However, the problems facing our pension scheme cannot be reduced to just the retiring age. It is not. It has to do with the health of the national economy. You understand? All of these contributions that we are contributing, how are we investing them? And is the economy healthy enough to add value to the investment such that when people retire, we can take good care of them? I mean, it comes to the question of the value of money. And the value of money is not static. The value of money keeps changing, dependent on the economic variables and so on. I mean, what is today 200 cedis 10 years ago, was a lot of money. So we need to be looking at the national economy. If the national economy is not healthy, no matter what you do, your pension scheme is going to run aground. You're going to have a lot of problems. It also has to do with prudent investment of pension funds. Are we doing prudent investment of pension funds and so on? All kinds of questions. I agree with my brother here that the pension schemes we have today, they are problematic. I mean, somebody teaches for 40 years of his life, and then he's going home, and the lump sum he or she gets is less than 20,000 cedis. And what are you going to do with 20,000 cedis if you retire at 60 and you live up to 85? What are you going to do with 20,000 cedis? Even for 5 years, what are you going to do with 20,000 cedis? And yet this is the kind of lump sum that most people are getting. And I think that we should begin to re-examine the whole pension scheme and make it realistic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. The point of departure, Honorable, has got to do with that and the unemployment situation. So I thought you were going to touch on that.
Yeah, you see, you don't create employment by simply replacing, and that has been the trend. Look, especially under this government, they talked about a lot of issues: one district, one factory, one village, one not, in order to absorb the unemployment rate. They came with NAPCO to be able to employ graduates. But you see, when you look at it, there were political tentacles so much that they were being driven by the political manifesto that they gave. So they wanted to just do something that are not sustainable. But our pension scheme, our Senate, and the number of people in the public and civil service is just below 1 million people. How are you going to create that? You see, we don't do enough investments. Creation of jobs is different from replacing people who are in the public service. Absolutely. People who retire and you replace them. People you come and you say that they were employed by NDC and you sack and you bring another MPP bunch of people. Then you go to almost every sector of the economy, including the security services. You are just trying to fill the holes and the gaps. You haven't created any employment. If you do investment, both in infrastructure and long-term investment, and as a result of that investment, jobs are created, they become sustainable, and they can absorb the unemployment level. But what we are doing currently today is just a lazy man's job. Oh, I've come. The public sector, and this was not employed because IMF asked them not to employ. Then you choke the system with it. Have you done that? You haven't created any employment. Well, yes, so investments are what will lead to the creation of jobs. There's a difference between creation of jobs and filling in gaps as a result of deaths, vacancies, people have moved on, and your political, So these are the issues that we must look at.
Okay.
Investment, because look at the monies we have taken, over 300 billion. What did we use the money for? Have we invested them? We can't even account for one infrastructure. And it's the infrastructure that will bring jobs. Because when you build more hospitals, more schools, you are definitely going to train more nurses. You train more teachers to occupy those positions, and they'll work for life. If you expand other businesses, you are going to employ people on it. Even look at our contractors. We've not paid them, both roads and then those under get fund and so on. Yet we're going to take 1.5 billion to pay contractors. Imagine we exhaust the 1.5 billion without putting up structures. Importing cars. Do you know the amount of cars we imported before the elections? The 1.5 million went to the importation of cars that can crash, and then that will be the end. If we had continued with the community school and build up more schools, and let me end on this note that when we talked about the infrastructure and that the government had promised that we would put up 350 brand new schools, and they couldn't put up one, and they told us that, look, we shouldn't be looking at the brand new school. We should look at the structures that they did in the existing schools. And all these structures were uncompleted structures that were handed over to the current government on various levels of stages of completion. So in actual fact, too, they never put up any brand new structure in any school, but they continue with the projects that were handed over to them through GET Fund by the previous administration that had reached various levels of completion. Some were on lintel level and so on. The list is there. Not even one brand new structure did they put up. If you don't invest consciously, then you borrow to consume. You can't create jobs because there's no consumption in job creation.
Right, thank you.
There's no job creation in consumption.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, finally, Ghana loses $90.8 million through fraudulent activities.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the basis of this story. I don't see the empirical evidence. Obviously, fraudulent activities do take place and we lose some money. But 19 million, that's a joke, you understand? So I'm not going to make any extensive comments on this topic because I'm not sure of the empirical basis of the assertion.
Honorable. Yeah, as for me, even beyond the what do you call the story, the 90, this is just a portrait sum. Look at judgment debt. Over 138 million, yet we send people to the arbitration. So what were they doing at arbitration? Was it that they went to the arbitration and later on they said that, look, let's allow the company to take the money so that they will go through the back door and they will share some of the money for us? We are losing a lot of money. There was this report that was captured by the cost of corruption, 2012. And that was a think tank headed by CDD, headed by Kwesi Prempeh, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. And he said that, look, since its inception in November 2017, Corruption Watch has discovered that 9.6 billion Ghana cedis stolen from public purse, including all these things. So for me, it's a huge thing. The leakages through fraudulent activity, even by public servants conniving with private institutions and so on, is a huge thing. We've talked about this over and over again. Fraudulent activity, it could be private, it could be public, all comes to the fact that the taxpayer suffers so much in terms of this. And ways must be done so that we close these issues and the perpetrators punished.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable. Let me read a few messages that have come through and then we take a bow. Okay, right. So this one says, what are the messages? Okay. Kwame, I want to use your media house to advise all NDC activists and members to allow IMPs to have some space. They are intelligent to do the right thing for the country and the party. Besides, they are not children and didn't inform anyone to drink tea without biscuit at the National Coalition Center. Interesting. Uh-oh. What's happening with the... I think it's freezing. Anyway, I think the messages are now pouring in. KPJ, thank you. Our leadership today is totally down. Achu is my name from Hohoi. The appointment committee should have asked Minister of Defense whether he's aware of any disability in the military. All right. Monica Cons. Is it Monica Cons? Good morning to you, KOD and the panelists. In fact, I'm very... I'm in love with your unique TV station and never turn my back. I monitor your shows almost every day and I'll be coming to Accra when COVID comes down. Best wishes to you all and warm greetings to Amma. Monica Cons. Long time. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I think I have to bow out now so that we can make way for the court proceedings this morning. Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for your time today. Thank you, Honorable Timothy. And thank you to you for watching today's edition of Good Morning Africa. My name is Kwame Owusu. So apologies I couldn't read all your messages because I'm having a little challenge with the phone. But I'll see you tomorrow, and I hopefully will try and read as many messages as possible. Have a nice day. Salute.